Virginia. The last time I was in Virginia was 2005 when my mom attended a writing conference. I was always stressed out by my family's vacations. In adulthood, I've found it's because I travel differently than my parents do. They always wanted to revere the places we visited, while I was constantly cracking jokes about everything and felt held back about my parents' pace. I wanted to get lost in the woods, ride my bike, or skate around. I was excited to finally be at my own pace this time. Another bonus on the East Coast is that the US Highway 1 starts here, and I would follow it exclusively all the way to Portland, Maine. Easy navigation. Virginia is one of those places I'd heard a lot about, but never understood. I had little expectations for the state, except that it might be built of 18th century homesteads. I was ready to experience this state from the ground level. Virginia is for lovers. I rode about 70 miles from Durham, North Carolina to South Hill, Virginia. South Hill was your generic economic engine consisting primarily of chain restaurants and a few warehouse-type blue-collar jobs that kept it a worthwhile place to raise a family. Nothing out of the ordinary. I had dinner at this barbecue spot and asked the cashier if she knew of any campgrounds nearby. Some other people in line overheard me and hesitantly told me the only campground they knew of was 7 miles south of town. They were acting suspiciously towards me, and I wanted to call out this negative vibe, but wasn't looking for a fight. I looked and smelled like a wet grizzly bear. So maybe they just saw me as some vagabond who was going to ruin their town. I rode past the local public park and scanned the baseball fields and woods surrounding it for a potential sleep spot. There was a sign designating that the woods were private land, and I tried to avoid private land when stealth camping. I stopped by a hotel to ask what they charged for a night.
The guy behind the counter was a short and barefoot Indian man who spoke with a heavy accent.
He leaned back in his chair and his hands behind his head and said, $54.99 plus tax. I said okay, and that I might be back. He was quick to stop me and said he would give it to me for $49.99 if I stayed right now, and I still told him I needed to think about it. I left before he kept trying to convince me. I stopped at a McDonald's and hung out for a few hours, grieving my lack of camping options. I didn't feel good about this city after my experiences with the people, and the drivers weren't very courteous either. I had this uncomfortable feeling about everything. I was afraid that something terrible would happen if I got caught camping somewhere that was exposed. As it got dark outside, I thought about going back to the public park for another search. As I was leaving the parking lot, I found a perfect spot to camp behind their dumpster. There was an alley behind the strip mall next door, and a little hill hid the backside from the road and had plenty of tree cover. I pushed my bike up and over the hill and enjoyed my success. I set up camp in the trench and tried to get in the tent before the bugs did. It was hot and humid that night, so I was sweating up a storm. At least I knew I had a safe place to camp, and that helped me sleep soundly. Plus, the VIP location next to breakfast is a win-win. I woke up at 5:45 a.m. to get an early Arches breakfast. I was ready to get a jump start for a hefty 85-mile day. The lady at the counter asked if I wanted cream and sugar in my coffee. I said 4 of each. I only said 4 because in my earlier experiences, I'd been given 4 individual portions and I used it between 2 cups of coffee. In this case, they had a creamer machine that portioned 4 cream and sugar in the cup before giving it to me. I took a drink, and it was terrible. I laughed that I had become the coffee drinker that I made fun of. Communication breaks down so quickly when I failed to specify my intent. I threw it away and went back to get more coffee. She gave me this very shocked face as she poured me another cup. I think she assumed I had just chugged that cup in 3 minutes. The ultimate problem with fast food coffee is that they amplify the dirt taste by keeping at a scorching temperature of 120 degrees. Virginia had a beautiful countryside and is very hilly. I found the country drivers were courteous when they passed, though the driving population could improve on its proper bicycle passing etiquette. Most people would slow down to the same speed as me and wait for oncoming traffic to cease and then rev and speed past me. Even when there's enough room in the lane to pass me safely without accelerating. Drivers were either overly worried and extra cautious or didn't care and passed like I'm a dead deer. I arrived outside the city of Dinwiddie, Virginia, and was ready to enjoy lunch. The day before, I had stopped at a Walmart and found some interesting items in the discount rack. I got Vienna sausages for $1 and a can of Carolina-style pork. I convinced myself it's the equivalent of trying an international delicacy, if you can even consider this food. I stopped at a gas station to buy a soda and loiter in their shade for a few minutes. It was packed wall to wall with convenient items. They had a chest full of iced Dr. Pepper cans at the front door and a takeout chicken counter. I started to question the food in my bag and couldn't leave without something from this case. The East Coast was going to treat me well in the food category, but not in the bank account. In the true nature of places like this, the lady behind the counter acted impatiently as I stared into the abyss of grease and fried gold. I stumbled my words as I ordered a bag of potato wedges. I went back outside and squatted next to the ice machine on the sidewalk. People were physically walking over me, as I was probably written off as a homeless guy. I started to open the discount food and felt uncertain whether I should eat it. They didn't look very satisfying, and I had an adverse reaction to the smell of the Vienna sausage. Yet, I was trying to push the limits, live on the edge, you know? I ate the Carolina pork, and it wasn't disgusting. I ate 1 Vienna and spit it out instantly. A perversion of anything that should be consumed by humans. I threw it all away and finished lunch with the delicious potato wedges. Last time I tried a skimp on food. I arrived in the Richmond, Virginia suburbs, and the scenery changed drastically. I wasn't in rural Virginia anymore, but now in lovely populated neighborhoods. The drivers got even weirder the closer I got to the city. This group of people in a 90s Camry pulled up next to me. When their vacuum cleaner engine buzzed past, someone stuck their head out of the back window and yelled, "Get your ass out of the way!" I thought to myself, you need to retake the driver's test, buddy. I brooded about it for the rest of the afternoon. People who take action like that against cyclists are ignorant and have some kind of mental lapse about the humanity of pedestrians and bicyclists. We are vulnerable on the road, and for some reason, drivers like to take for granted that they have the illusion of safety in the driver's seat. I believe there's a lack of education about how pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers should interact. I feel like many people conveniently skip over that part of the driver's license manual and make up their own reality. It's also part of a more significant issue in which society has been built for cars instead of multimodal transit. To the assholes that run cyclists off the road, get in a wreck. I had secured a host home with Randy and Barb. They were family friends of my buddy Josh in Kansas City. Josh grew up in Richmond, and his family has been close with their family his entire life. When I made it to their quaint neighborhood, I spied Randy waving me down into his driveway. The first thing he observed about me was my long sleeves and sun hat. He could deeply relate to this sort of outdoor garb because he was wearing it himself. Frankly, it's just better than sunscreen. Randy introduced me to Barb, and like every other host home, they first gave me the home tour and showed me where I would be sleeping. I'm humbled by people's hospitality. They set up the spare room with the softest comforter I've ever felt. They asked what I wanted for dinner, and I said whatever is available. Randy fired up the grill to prepare some steaks, and I talked to Barb while she made the other side dishes. She grew multiple gardens in the backyard and told me about a community garden project she's a part of. Both Randy and Barb are retired, and also cancer survivors. We had a hearty dinner and stayed up until midnight conversing over a few beers. I woke up around 6 a.m. and found Barb cooking us waffles and eggs. I thanked them both for such a great time and allowing me to stay over. Hopefully I'll see them in Kansas City someday. I started riding again, and about lunchtime I saw a Sheetz gas station. If you've never seen a Sheetz, your life is not complete. Sheetz is a vast truck stop with a made-to-order food counter inside. It feels like more of a convenience warehouse than a gas station. Tall ceilings, aisles of snacks, and a perverse amount of coolers fill the perimeter. You order food on a touchscreen and take the receipt to pay up front. I tried a sandwich with popcorn chicken and coleslaw on a hoagie bun, slathered in boom boom sauce. I'm not a coleslaw fan, but this sandwich was flavorful. I figured it was a combination I'll never see again, so I'm glad I went for it. I washed it all down with an Arizona tea and felt very content. How's that for a commercial? In Fredericksburg, Virginia, I stayed with Ken and Susan, friends of Barb's. They were a lovely couple and invited me into their home with open arms. Susan made spaghetti for dinner, and Ken's brother also joined us. Ken and his brother were hilarious. They shared stories about growing up that seemed endless. I couldn't stop laughing at the shenanigans they got into as kids. Ken is a video editor, and I asked him what kind of software he edits on. He promptly said, Adobe, in this funny accent as he looked at his brother like he was waiting for a reaction. I knew exactly what he was inferring. It's a quote from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. It turns out they are big fans of that movie, and we found this instant connection of silliness. I've never met anyone who likes that movie as much as me. I immediately showed them the reenactment I filmed while visiting the Alamo dressed as Pee-wee, and they loved it. It was way too much fun, and we were quoting all night long. Eventually, they got into a conversation about how Ken saved a Super Bowl edition Coke from 1984, and he and his brother drank it years ago. He showed me the bottle and alluded to the fact that he had another old bottle of Coke laying around. I suggested we drink the other bottle right then. This bottle didn't have any date indicator, but by the logo, I'm guessing it's the late 90s at best. In the true spirit of the night, I filmed us opening and drinking the ancient Coke together. It wasn't that bad, just tasted watered down. I'm appreciative of the people I get the honor of meeting, like Ken. I will have many Christmas cards to send out this year.